What if a hacker walks into your office, plugs into an unused switch port, and steals all your data? Scary, right? Unsecured switch ports are one of the easiest ways attackers breach networks, but there's a simple fix. In this video, I'll show you how port security works, how to lock down your switch ports in minutes, and the 3 critical modes that stop unauthorized access dead in its tracks. Stay until the end to see the shocking mistake most admins make and how to avoid it. Port security configuration. Unused ports on a switch are a security risk. A person who is not very attentive could very well connect to one of the unused ports of the switch and access the network. The easiest way to add security, and which most admins use, is to disable all ports, which are not in use. To stop several ports at once, you can use the command interface range. This command avoids connecting to each of the ports, only to type the same commands. In the example, we configure the fast Ethernet interfaces from 1 to 2. At the same time, we can see that we are in a range of IPs with the new acronym of the mode. Here, the command shutdown will disable all interfaces in this range. That is to say, ports 1 and 2. The command just below, switch port access VLAN 99, adds a level of security by placing these 2 interfaces in a VLAN that is not used. If we do a show running config, we can see that both of our interfaces are disabled because they are marked shut down and that they are part of the VLAN 99. Ideally, if you have a switch that has 24 ports and only 3 ports are used, then you should disable the other 21 ports that are not used. So, it's not necessarily a very interesting task for an admin, but it greatly improves safety. So, we have seen how to secure ports that are not in use. But what about those who are? With a switch, it is possible to control the ports, restricting access to certain MAC addresses. This feature, which is widely used for security, is called port security. This limitation on MAC addresses can be done in 2 different ways. The first is to manually register the MAC address that will be allowed to connect to the port. And the second one will dynamically authorize the first MAC address that will connect to the port. As a reminder, the MAC address corresponds to the physical address of the machine, that is to say, of his network card. There are 3 types of security for the port. We have static learning, which is manually configured by a network admin. There is dynamic learning, or the MAC address is dynamically retrieved to be stored in the MAC table of the switch. As it is dynamic, the address will be deleted after a restart of the switch. And we have sticky learning. Here, the MAC address is also learned dynamically, except that it is saved in the running config file. On this topology, we have 2 PCs that are connected to the same port of the switch. So not simultaneously, but it's just to show an example. When a frame arrives on a port configured as a secure port, its source MAC address is checked by the switch's MAC table. If the source MAC address is attached to the correct port of the switch, then the data will be transmitted. However, if it is not one of the allowed MAC addresses, then the switch will not transmit the frame. In this case, it's called a security breach. When this happens, you can configure the switch to react in 3 different ways with the package that is not allowed. We have the protect mode, which will simply delete packets that have a MAC address, which is not recognized. There's the restrict mode, which is identical to the previous one, except that it keeps track of the violation in its log and even generates an SNMP trap. This is very useful if you use a supervision server. It also increments a counter, which allows you to know how many security breaches there have been. And we have the shutdown mode, which is the default mode. Here, as soon as a security breach occurs, it will automatically disable the port, which can only be reactivated by a network admin by making a shutdown, no shutdown on the interface. And as with the restrict mode, it also keeps track of violations. We will now see in detail its configuration on the switch. Let's say we want to configure security on fast Ethernet port 3 with only one MAC address that will be able to connect to it. Dynamic learning in sticky mode. And at the slightest violation, we want the port to deactivate itself. First of all, we'll start by connecting to port 3 of the switches. Before you can configure port security, it must be either in access mode or trunk mode. Here, as it is connected to a PC and not to another switch, you will choose the access mode with the command switch port mode access. Then you can activate port security with the switch port security command. The switch port security maximum 1 command allows only one MAC address to connect to this port. We choose a sticky dynamic learning of the MAC address. Since the previous parameter is set to 1, the first address that the port learns will be authorized and written to the switch's configuration file. No other addresses will be able to connect to this port unless the switch reboots. And to complete the configuration, we choose the shutdown violation mode, which will disable the interface as soon as a security violation occurs. Instead of the word shutdown, it is possible to put either protect or restrict. We could also have given him a static MAC address with the command switch port security MAC address, plus the MAC address to authorize. And if you want, remove this port security function, well, you just have to use the no in front of the command. Now that we have configured the security on port 3 of the switch, we'll check that it works well. The show port security command on our interface shows us all its configuration. Here, we can see that the port security is well enabled. In fact, the secure up status indicates that it is working properly. The violation mode is set to shutdown. The maximum number of MAC addresses that can be learned is 1, and we see the violation counter, which is at 0. As a reminder, only shutdown and restrict modes increment this counter. Now, let's say another PC connects to this port. Here are the settings that will be affected by this change. We can see that the status of the port has changed to secure shutdown, and that the violation counter has been incremented by 1. In this state, only a network admin will be able to recommission the port by making it a shutdown, no shutdown. The show interface status command displays information about the status of the various ports on the switch. The show port security address command displays the secure MAC addresses of all ports on the switch. And the show port security command displays the security settings of the switch.